Hello everybody, I'm Lanz and I'm a master, and for this video, I'm with another master, RecusantVessel. Recusant, what's good, King?
Yo, what to do? Back from retirement for one last hurrah.
Today, we're going to break down the pros and cons of KH2FM and KH3 Remind gameplay, and what we would like to see implemented for Kingdom Hearts 4, as well as discuss some original ideas. Recusant, you like to kick things off with 2FM breakdown?
If you know me, you'd know I'm one of the biggest KH2FM fans on the planet. I have probably, 3,000 hours clocked across every copy of both KH2 and 2FM I own and or have owned. I absolutely adore this game, and it's not hard to see why. I turned my love for the game/series into a stint of entertainment in my life where I too became a content creator for KH. In doing so, I only developed a deeper appreciation for the game's combat specifically. I've always been a challenge run type of guy. I've beaten all the Soulsborne games at Soul Level 1, and I love that feeling that constant uphill climb challenge runs give me. Prior to me creating content, I had already been playing the series on Critical Level 1, so I definitely had already done my fair share of challenge runs. It wasn't until I played the game in so many different ways that I really came to appreciate just how amazingly fluid and well-grounded KH2FM's combat is. Let's take a little deep dive into KH2's combat. Vanilla KH2 honestly still aged pretty well in a vacuum, but in comparison to 2FM, it's a little wonky. Just think now, how the heck did we play through the entire game without dodge roll? They relegated our precious roll to a situational reaction command on just a few fights, but I think due to the nature of the game, we didn't necessarily need it. Now in 2FM, we most definitely needed it. The extra content is difficult in nature, and I think that's where they really nailed it with 2FM's additions to combat/movement. Limit form being added not only felt perfect to use in the secret boss fights, but it also served as a great way to give us back dodge roll. The design philosophy for all the additional secret bosses gelled well with KH2's already existing combat framework. The gravity of Sora is far lighter than in KH1, but unlike in later Osaka titles, I didn't feel like being in the air was a detriment more than an advantage. There's so many options to control space and mob fights that being in the air feels evenly strong as being on the ground. Aerial dive, flash step, sliding dash, aerial spiral, and round break are all great gap closer/mob control abilities. One major difference here is mob fights feel fair enough that I don't feel like I need to resort to using limits, links, summons, or others like I do in other future titles, especially KH3. Segueing into another major aspect that is overlooked when discussing KH2's combat is that most enemies have fair aggression/AI. They allow you to control the pace as opposed to feeling like you're always on the back foot. Now I say most because, well, there are some enemies that are just complete BS. Let's name a few too many, shall we? Hot Rod, Crimson Jazz, Dancer, and Sorcerer, just to name some of my most hated nemeses. Now most enemies also work and reward in tandem with their respective reaction commands, but what do you notice with the 4 prior ones I have listed? Oh, would you look at that? They don't have any RCs. That's a fun little pattern you come to realize if you play 2FM on harder difficulties. The most obnoxious enemies don't necessarily have RCs to help your fight against them. So yes, the combat does have its fair share of complete nonsense garbage that can kill you instantly. Looking at you, Dancer command grab. That being said, the real beauty of the gameplay shines in its humanoid boss fights. Yes, mob fights are fun, but you're given so many options that you don't really get to appreciate Sora's prowess until you start fighting the real bosses. You don't really feel how cool Sora is until you take on the absent silhouettes/data organization fights. The beauty of revenge value shines through when you realize the game rewards you heavily for learning fights and boss AI. You can effectively loop them start to finish if you execute a game plan well enough consistently. That being said, I have enjoyed the evolution of boss counterattacks, and I think Lingering Will and Yozora are the pinnacle of them. Whereas a lot of bosses in 2FM have one predetermined retaliation as soon as you hit that internal value, Lingering Will and Yozora vary. Lingering Will can pretty much throw in any of his normal attacks as a revenge value attack, as can Yozora. Yozora, however, can also do anything he wants at any time, including DM immediately at the start of his fight. Superb. I appreciate both styles, but I want KH4 to really capitalize on the evolution they've begun to implement in their secret bosses. 2FM combat isn't perfect, far from it, but man is it fun and rewarding when you learn it.
I'm with you with mobs being the most fun in 2FM. When I did those battle gigs in KH3 for the first time against those nobody mobs, I was missing reaction commands bad. I would also love it if predetermined retaliations returned as well as the revenge in revenge value. Because in most cases, in even limit cut and in the secret episode, all in all V stands for runaway rather than revenge. I feel both these philosophies can significantly add to a soccer team built with Remind. KH3 has my favorite gameplay in the series, but it took a while to get there. I feel like I can speak for a lot of advanced players that base solo on KH3 Longstay was a disappointment. As you can see, it's a bit slower pace with its base combo and combo modifiers at launch. And quite frankly, it didn't feel very rewarding to play. KH3 also launches with Attraction Flow, a mechanic of attacks based on Disney theme parks, and until the 1.05 update that included critical mode and the critical converter ability, Attraction Flow indicators will disrupt gameplay, and in my opinion, it's the worst mechanic in the series.
Pathetic!
Fortunately, the 1.09 update that included 6 combo modifiers, both new and old, released right before Remind dropped, made base solo significantly more satisfying to play. The point is, I'm hoping KH4 has a snappy base combo and combo modifiers at launch, and we don't have to wait till the big 2FM Remind-esque expansion to get them. Boss design is another thing that improved from the base game, and even the rest of the series, as the majority of these fights don't really have gimmicks, and if they did have gimmicks, they flowed well into the fight's design, even amplified the experience. A lot of them have different pattern rotations, giving you more you have to learn, and I'd like to not to see super bosses, but story bosses have deeper movesets in KH4. Each Keyblade in KH3 has the Form Tings, which is the successor to Dry Forms from KH2 and Command Styles from Birth by Sleep. Most of them fall under different styles that highlight offense, defense, magic, and speed, with the exception of Second Form, Rage Form, Ultimate Form, and Light and Dark Form. Some of them can even evolve and unlock better finishers, rewarding the player for staying active. The coolest things about Form Tings is KH3 allows you to carry up to 3 Keyblades at once, and you're able to switch between them and store transformations in them, giving the player the ability to use their finishers, magic, and grand magic, being stylistic combos, making for arguably some of the most rewarding and enjoyable gameplay you can find in action JRPGs. Speaking of Keyblades, I feel like there was a missed opportunity of not taking advantage of the Keyblade leveling up system to give players incentive to try different Keyblades to earn abilities to carry over the base solo and not test exclusive while using a certain Keyblade. Like for example, I think it would have been cool if while using Ever After, when you max it out, you get to keep Leaf Bracer on base solo and it wouldn't be exclusive while using Ever After. I really liked how 2FM made players level up their dry forms, incentivizing Sora's growth through this method. Still leveling up Keyblades return in KH4. I would love to see the layout KH3 provided with the incentive KH2 gave dry forms in mind. Something that I think would be super dope in KH4 is if they brought the Gummy Sip grading system in KH3 and applied it to scripted mob fights and boss fights. It will give the player a more rewarding feeling. You could pair those up with easy codes and pro codes, so those come back. I hope they come back. They gave KH3 so much replayability, and it would be super cool to see those both come back and be available at launch. Just so there's some replay value until the inevitable expansion comes out 1 year later. Oh, and bring back 3 phases to boss fights. More death, the better.
As much of a 2FM purist that I am, I'd be hard-pressed not to talk about how strong KH3's gameplay finally became. I think what Lanz said about Remind in the 1.9 patch was right on target. They really fixed practically every single issue Sora had. They fixed guard, they gave him far better combat abilities, including some of the goats from KH2. Sora never felt better in KH3 until 1.9 dropped, but I didn't really feel it until I actually got to play Remind. The addition of Oathkeeper and Oblivion along with Double Form only added on to an already pristine feeling combat experience. Not only that, but Limit Cut has quite possibly the best collection of secret bosses in the entire series. Whereas 2FM's humanoid boss fights more often than not feel like a deadly waltz, KH3's feels more like a back and forth fight where each person takes turns kicking the crap out of each other. They are all bangers, even Luke's sword, but mostly because of his theme. I just too hate that we seem to only get the good stuff in the expansion rather than the base game. I wouldn't mind it as much if we actually get a good feeling Sora and secret bosses in the base game. Then, the expansion just kind of gives us like a win more feeling rather than a, oh, there it is feeling. I still am not a big transformation guy. Keyblade transformations are just too gimmicky for me in their current state. I think they'd excel more if they were just integrated into our base combo or the Keyblade's respective combo. Remind set a great starting point though for what the series can continue to evolve into, and I hope KH4 really pushes the limits of what's possible.
Thank you so much for joining me, Recusant. Recusant is a very special person in my content creation journey. I was inspired to start doing level 1 playthroughs. Recusant, where can they find you?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I have a YouTube channel, but I don't really create content anymore. But the videos that I do have are awesome. They're straight fire, man. Like, but I don't really use my Twitter stream anymore. But yeah, just watch my videos. They're good.
I can confirm. My man was cooking. But thank you guys for watching. May your heart, your guiding key. Happy March Caprice.